This project is going to use a lot of smaller pieces. I mean, I still need to do some gluing up, but I don't need anything really big. Going from my plans, I need 5 discs that are 9 inches across. So actually, I might be able to get some out of this board without even doing any glue ups. But I also need a 15 by 15 base, so I'll need to glue that up. Yeah, so let's bring this big piece over here. And yeah, it is not rocking, so I should be able to just send this through the planer and I should get 1, 2, 3 pieces, as long as I'm willing to live with some sapwood. Just see this sapwood line right here. If I flip it over, then it's much more obvious. Yeah, I don't think I mentioned I'm making this out of cherry. So cherry's got a fairy pale sapwood, which generally I like to avoid. Some people really like to have it show up. So next I need to sort through all the wood, and it's like my first one's got this crack in there, so I'm going to cut like 1.5 inches off this one. This piece has got a huge amount of sap, which is funny because on this side it looks dark. But I'm probably going to cut a chunk of that off. And that one's okay, that one's okay. Actually, going back, this one is also too wide for my joiner. My joiner is 6 inches, so if I can cut it below 6 inches, that just makes life easier. Same with this piece, 6 3/4. It's just a little bit too wide, and it's got a rock to it, so it definitely needs to be jointed. This piece has got a crack down the middle, so I'm probably going to rip it at 4.5 into 2 pieces, use it separately. These are sort of my, if I have to, I'll use them. Really, since I lucked into this piece, and that's going to give me 3 discs, I need 2 more, so that would say 2 of them out of here, and then I'll need to make the 15 by 15. So that, I probably have enough wood. I'll probably process this also to have extra. So I'll put that aside, but I'll focus on this. So yeah, my next step is to do some ripping on the bandsaw and then jointing and planing, and then we will see. So I just wanted to explain that one cut. This piece is about 6 3/4 wide, and I'm just too cheap to just rip off a 1/2 inch and throw it away. So I just split this one into 2 smaller pieces, so it'll fit nicely over my joiner, and then I can sort them out and glue them up together as I need them. First step now is joint the face and the adjoining side, and then onto the planer. As I said, this plank is in good shape, and that should give me 3 of the circles that I need. This will glue together and it should give me 2, so that'll be the 5 that I need. And then this will give me the 15 by 15 panel, and in fact it will have enough for a circle as well, just in case one of those screws up. And I know I haven't talked about the legs yet, that's going to be different. One thing I have to remember is that my planer will only take pieces up to 13 inches wide. So whereas for these discs, I can glue that up and then plane them later, for this 15-inch piece, I need to plane them first and then do a perfect glue up where everything stays flat. So I kind of have 2 different things I have to do. And a good ripping blade really does make a difference. So first, this piece that can get glued up. So I can set this aside to dry while I work on getting these planed down, and then I can glue that up later. While I had the planer out, I also ran the plank through a few times. I didn't take it to finish thickness. I just wanted to plane it down a bit, so now I can just set it aside to sticker it and see if it's going to do any more moving before we plane it to final thickness along with the other boards. So I want these 3 pieces to be perfectly flush, so I'm going to use my dowel max for alignment before glue up. And one thing you need to do then is clean up the end so that you start with a straight end. And we will put in a hole every 6 inches or so. And so with these dowel alignment holes, I'll end up with a nice flat glue up. And of course you could do the same thing with dominoes or biscuits or things like that. Nice and smooth. Get a nice glue squeeze out all the way along. So I've been jumping back and forth between these two glue ups. So just so we're clear, this is the piece that's going to give us the 15 by 15 base of the plant stand. And so that's why we needed a perfectly flat glue up, because it's too big to go through the planer. So this is basically ready to be cut to size, which I think we'll do next. And these are the pieces that are going to be cut up to make the 9-inch circles. These still need to go through the planer some more, and then we can start work on cutting them into circles. I actually stopped planing at just a little over 7/8. Being able to decide on what thickness I want is one of the fun things about custom woodworking. I don't have to make it exactly 3/4 of an inch thick. Now I'm going to rip and cut these down into squares that are roughly 9.5 inches by 9.5 inches. So I got my 5 square blanks, and I even have one extra. Hopefully I don't need it. So for cutting out my circles, I've got this very simple circle cutting jig that fits on my bandsaw. It's a rectangle of plywood, and on the back there's a piece of wood that fits into the track and another piece of wood which serves as a stop that comes up against the front of the table. There's a pivot here that the board will swing around. You put it on the pivot, bring it into the blade, and turn it around. First we got to mark center on these blanks. You need to make sure this is the bottom of your piece, because we are going to make a hole in it. X marks the spot. Really, the hardest part seems to be getting it onto the pin because it's underneath. And you can't really see through. Once we got it on the pin, we just bring it part way on. Push it forward until it hits the stop, and then you just spin it around slowly. And there we go. Bunch of perfect circles. The one thing is you are going to get a little hole in the bottom. You just have to work around that. So we got a base, we got 5 discs, so now we need to connect them together with these 5 posts. I'm looking for legs that are like 2 by 2, so pretty thick pieces. Now fortunately I've got these 8/4 boards from a previous project, so I don't have to do any glue ups. I just need to do some cutting and planing and joining. I need to take some time now and fill these knot holes in this crack with epoxy. Unfortunately, I'm pretty much out of 5-minute epoxy, so I'm going to have to use this stuff, which means I'm going to be stuck for about 24 hours waiting for it to cure. Normally I'd grab the sander, but I'm going to try using a scraper this time. I've seen other people do that. And that seems to do a pretty good job. I think I'm still going to finish it off with the sander, but that's taken off quite a bit. So in this design there are 5 staggered posts that support the discs, and I'm planning on 50, 40, 30, 20, and 10 inches. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but you do kind of want the spacing between them to be regular. So I think I just have enough. And I diverged a bit from my plans because my longest piece was long enough that I was able to make it to 51.5 inches instead of 50. And because the window that this plant stand is going to be standing by is pretty high, I made that adjustment all the way through. So everything is up by 1.5 inches over my plans. So 51.5, 41.5, 31.5, 21.5, 11.5. Still have maintained the 10-inch spacing between each post, so between each shelf. So up until this point, I haven't really worried about how it's going all together. I've been mulling things over. I have been making this up as I go along, but I think I've got a plan for how to take it forward. And I switched out the black and white for a color picture, so it's a little bit easier to see that there's all these posts that are attached at the bottom, and then there's these discs on top. So how is this all hang together? Here's just 2 discs, and I just put some scrap together to sort of show what we're looking at. So how is this how does this work? And what I need to do is I need to attach this to the base, and I need to attach this to the disc. That's easy enough. I'm just going to screw right through it and then plug the holes. Same from below. But then I also want to attach the disc, which is round, to the pole, which is square, as all those connections will strengthen and tie the whole stand together. And I'm taking a piece of scrap from the post, and on each disc I'm going to line it up right to the edge here and draw a line. And then I'm going to take this over to the disc sander and I'm going to make that flat. And then this gives us a flat spot which can now go against the center post. And then I will be screwing through the center post from the other side. So future art jumping in here for a split second. I had a camera issue and I lost all my drill press footage where I took the 5 discs and I enlarged the center hole and drilled it out to be a 1/4 inch in diameter. And then I used a 1/8 inch roundover in my handheld router, and then I did a bunch of sanding. And now I'm going to put a little 1/4 inch dowel in each one of these holes. And if you're thinking that these are going to be alignment pins, you're bang on correct. And I'm going to drill matching holes in both ends of the posts. Have to be careful because I can't use this on the drill press. And these are now also going to get the router and the sanding treatment. So here's my 15 by 15 base, and right in the middle I drilled another hole, and that's going to match, you know, a marker in the center upright. But I also have to do 4 more, and I need to figure out where I'm going to put those. And it's, you know, in the plans everything is perfect, but in reality things are not perfect. Like my blocks are supposed to be 2 inches, but they're actually a 1/16 of an inch less than 2 by 2. So I have to keep that in mind. And these discs are 9.5 inches, but then I just sanded a flat on them. So I'm measuring from the flat to the center, and I'm getting 4 7/16, which should be close enough. But I also have to allow for the block for positioning. So I was looking at that, and it should be basically an inch more, but it's a little bit less than that. But I'm just going to go with 5 7/16. So from the center, 5 7/16, 5 7/16, 5 7/16, 5 7/16. And yeah, sorry everybody who does metric. First I'm just going to, I shouldn't have drilled that hole yet. Unfortunately I got ahead of myself. Let's just draw a line for each of the 4 posts that need to go in. We're having fun. That's good. And instead of measuring from the center, it makes much more sense to try to measure from the side, because this is exactly 15 by 15. So it's 2 1/16. So let's mark that. Double check that. 2 1/16, 2 1/16, 2 1/16, and then measuring from the center, 5 7/16. All right, that's where I need to make 4 holes. So I have all the alignment holes on the top of the base. Now on the bottom of the base, I'm not sure how easy it is to pick up on the camera, but I also marked out the same center locations, and then I squared it off so I know exactly where the posts are going to be on the other side, and then I'm going to pre-drill holes through here so that I can screw from below into the posts. So I'm kind of realizing that this plant stand looks elegant and all that, but putting it together, it's like building a house of cards, because you got those 5 spindly legs and there's nothing really reinforcing it until you get a few pieces together. This is my 3rd plan that I've kind of worked out. And so what I've got is I've got the main pole clamped to the bench. I've got some clamps and squares ready, and I'm going to glue the base onto the bottom. I'm going to put a little glue here in the middle and a little glue here on the end. Probably too much. I got to watch it. I think I'm mostly going to be relying on the screws for the strength. So it's not straight at this point. Get these squares. And let's make sure it's square to the base, which I think it is. Put another one of these in place, why not? Check again. I've already pre-drilled in the base, but I have not pre-drilled into the post itself. I have some 2.5-inch screws, and I'm going to put some wax on to help them drive home, hopefully. So I'm going to leave this clamped in place, and I'm going to put on the first 10-inch post. Again, a bit of glue on the bottom. And I cut this spacer, which is the exact distance that this is to be away from the middle. And clamp from below, because I need some clearance. And then a long clamp here. Trying to squeeze up the bottom here. Can we see, is it still square? And again, I'm dipping it in the wax. That went way better than I was expecting. Now we're going to put this in place. Off camera, I figured out where this was going to hit, and I pre-drilled a little hole from this side and then a bigger hole from that side. Glue, glue, glue. This clamp is key. It's holding everything tight, so this disc is being held quite tight. Pre-drill from this side, and I'm not going to be able to go in very deep, but another 2.5-inch screw, another little bit of wax. Awesome. So now number 2, let's put a dowel in there. And now I can do a little mark here, and that tells me where I need to drill my hole. And I'm going to drill from this side because when I was testing it the first time, I drilled from the other side and the drill went at an angle. So I'm going to drill from the inside first, countersink bit from the outside. A little bit of glue, put the dowel in, clamp them here. So with the first 2 posts installed and attached to the center post, everything is a lot more solid, so I'm going to proceed now with the next 2. Just 2 points before I continue. First of all, I've cut some plugs, and I'm going to plug this first hole before I put a post in front of it. And second, I can't lay it down anymore, so I've got this clamped in place, and I'm going to have to screw from below to attach the post in place. And for the last disc, I brought it down to the ground because this is quite a large object when you get it all together. For now, I'm just going to put some weight on top and let the glue dry. And I know this is probably overkill, but I next found center on my discs, and then I drilled 2 countersunk holes so that I could put screws into the top of the post to hold things firmly together. And I'm not sponsored or anything like that, but I really like my Veritas plug cutting set. I recommend you guys get one like this. It's so handy in plugging screw holes. Once you have them drilled, you just pop them out with a screwdriver, or you can cut them out with a bandsaw. These are tapered, so one thing you need to know is that they actually go in upside down. So this is the part that goes into the hole, and then this is the part that will stick out. To have a glue in each hole, well, that's probably too much. And then I like to swirl it around to make sure we're coating the sides of the hole. You really want to try to make sure the grain on the plug is going in the same direction as the board, and that will really help it disappear. A little bit of backward laser printer, a little bit of acetone, a little bit of careful wiping, and let it dry. There we go. I'm starting with it upside down, and I'm going to do a quick coat of finish on the bottom, and then I'll flip it right side up. This is going to have plants on it, which means it's going to get wet, so of course I'm going to use polyurethane. And I'm also not going to make you watch me finish. So it is kind of neat when you first put some finish on cherry, how it starts to look. Okay. So still got one more little thing to do here, and I need it upside down for that. Let's put on some rubber feet. I have these rubber feet, and I will put one at each corner. They are self-adhesive, but I don't know how long that will last, so I'm still going to put a screw in the middle of each one. They have a recess there, so you can put a screw in and it won't scratch the floor. There we go. And so finally I can see all together what was first an idea and then a sketch and now a finished project. Everything is very solid now, even though it was quite the house of cards getting it together. Once we had the first two pieces locked into place, we could just keep adding to it, and each new connection just made it that much stronger. So I'm not at all worried about it coming apart or getting loose. This is the bottom disc, and this one the plugs are fairly visible. In contrast, the next one up, they're almost invisible. And of course there's going to be a plant right here that covers up the plugs anyways. Here's one of the plugs in the vertical post. It's also fairly invisible. And you get that by matching the grain when you put the plugs in, but even more importantly is I used the scrap from this project to make the plugs. So I mean, I've got the exact same wood with the exact same color to it, so it really blends in well. So if we look here, you can see where I flatten the edge of the disc so it meets up nicely with the central post. When I was working on the design, I was worried that the base might be too big, but like the discs actually overhang the base, and now that all the legs are on it, I think the base actually fits it, has a good proportion for it. And so here it is, fully populated with plants. I thought to wrap things up, it would be good to show you the project with some plants on it. I think it turned out great. It was a fun project. It was complicated. It challenged me when I was trying to put it together. And most importantly, my wife likes it. If you're interested in building your own version of this, I have simple plans available on my website that have all the dimensions and the drawings for this plant stand. As well, I have many other plans for projects that you might find interesting. Details and links for all of that are down in the video description. And as always, thanks for stopping by. I hope you found something enjoyable and interesting, and we'll see you on the next one.